mentioned 14 months since that devastating port blast. And earlier this week on Monday, another man who was injured in that port blast, he died. We're talking about 35-year-old Ibrahim Harb, an accountant who was in his office right near the port when it exploded. He was engaged to get married the month after the port blast, and he was moved from the hospital to his parents' house over the weekend, and he died, making him the 215th victim in this terrible port blast. Just a short reminder, on the 4th of August 2020, a massive explosion occurred in the port of Beirut. Thousands of tons of ammonium nitrate, that's material used in fertilizer, which is highly explosive. It erupted after a fire was ignited in the port. No one has still been brought to justice on this. This is in relation to the investigation, but it was clear that leading political officials and defense officials in Lebanon knew about this. Now, all this comes together as you mentioned, hundreds are protesting outside the Justice Palace in Beirut, some members of the victims, and they're not hiding their criticism specifically from Hezbollah that the stepping down of the judge comes at the backdrop of threats, pretty blatant threats from Hezbollah leadership. Let's hear some of the chants, which include chants of Hezbollah against them, calling them a terror group. Let's take a listen. And so the predecessor of Judge Bitar, he was also sidelined in this investigation, and now it's up to a court to decide whether the judge will continue his activity or he'll have to stop his work.
So what does this all mean for the relatives, as you say, taking to the streets, saying that they want answers? No one has been held accountable up until now. Where does this leave them when the investigation comes to a standstill?
Well, this happened as the investigation was actually starting to gain traction after, as I mentioned, the first judge who led the investigation stepped down. This came at a point where we were seeing subpoenas being issued. A former prime minister summoned, former interior minister. He was the one who petitioned against this investigation, and this is what brought to the suspension of the probe. But I think, you know, everyone is applauding Lebanon around the world for reaching a cabinet for the first time in 13 months just a couple weeks ago. But I think this is their next big test, because no one is willing to stand accountable for this. And we know that many different high-ranking officials in Lebanon knew about this, didn't do anything for years. They knew that the port was a powder keg, a literal powder keg just waiting to erupt, and they didn't do anything about it. And I think if this investigation ends up being completely shut down, we will see a lot more than, I imagine, we should expect to see a lot more than just hundreds protesting in the streets of Beirut.
Bringing us all the latest developments as they unfold, our Middle East correspondent Ariel Oseran, thank you so much as always.